Today, I'm delighted to be speaking to Theodor Himmel, who works to connect students and experts in diplomatic and economic affairs through the Berlin-based think tank EPIS. Together with his colleagues, he built the EPIS think tank into one of the largest student-led think tanks in Europe and initiated the EPIS Network. He currently serves as chairman of that organization and, of course, is looking to expand its reach and influence. And of course, we will put links to all of the resources that you may need to follow up on this in the description of the video. Theodor, welcome to the channel.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan, for the introduction, and thank you for taking the time.
No, this is an absolute delight, and I'm pleased to say that hopefully I'll be collaborating a lot more with you guys because I think this is an absolutely critical area. Just to place my cards on the table here, I regularly look at the demographics of my channel, and I communicate with lots of other, pro-Ukraine, geopolitical type commentators, etc., whether they be professional or amateur. And there's a commonality here, which is we can have audience from different countries, although getting a US audience is important, but the demographics are stark. The average age is 65 plus, 80 to 90% male, which is kind of typical when you look at any kind of military type YouTube channel. But this worries me that those who are most engaged in, let's say, long form analytical type content are of a demographic that is actually significantly older than I am, even. And this is a worry. Why aren't younger people engaging at scale in the kind of things covered by Silicon Curtain and similar channels?
Yeah, this is mostly because the debates happen without the younger people. Everybody wants to have a younger audience, wants to reach younger people, but actually talking to them happens quite rarely. So we can see, like in panels at conferences, we can see it as most of the podcasts. I do say, and also some other expert academia papers. Everywhere around, there are 65 plus people, 65 plus aged people, and predominantly male. And they don't invite the younger female, male, youth whatsoever. And if you don't invite the people, then they cannot bring their friends, and then this audience will never get younger. So this is why they don't reach it.
Is there also, well, we'll dive into EPIS in a second. Is there also a connection here between those who grew up in the Cold War, those who also grew up in the newspaper generation, people who are used to long form analytical materials and they're used to thinking of Russia, let's be frank, as a threat? It seems that, that generation, that sort of sense hasn't really communicated itself to younger demographics, especially people who sort of grew up in the 2000s. This is, Russia is showing the signs of being a malignant entity, which will be familiar to that older generation, but it just seems to be passing by many who are younger.
Well, to kind of give a context from my perspective, I grew up with a generation of politicians who thought in the 2000s and 2010s that Russia was not per se an ally, but a respected partner on a mutual level. And now this is shifting again. Facing it as a threat and as an enemy of ours. And I think this gradual shift also is part of the youth's vision. I think also the youth is more aware that Russia may be an enemy compared to the general public view on that.
Well, let's turn to the think tank because you specifically have the purpose to engage younger people and students in geopolitics. What is the, let's say, the thinking behind that? What's the impulse and purpose that drives you to sort of create this organization and particularly to focus on this as an issue, the younger demographics?
Well, I refer here to our mission statement in EPIS, which tells something like we want to engage the youth with experts. We want to foster their careers by getting them into professional publications, by getting them into professional dialogues with experts, professional ones. So we are not a youth think tank who is concerned with youth, but we are a think tank consisting of younger students, younger professionals, young professionals who are engaged in a professional manner.
And in terms of geography, you're Berlin based, and in previous years, perhaps prior to the full-scale war, we were in a period certainly where Germany was far more inclined to engage with Russia, and there's the policy of peace through trade, peace through engagement, peace
Yeah.
through integrating Russia, especially via its hydrocarbon network, into Europe. Now we've seen a dramatic change in Germany's posture, position, which would have been unthinkable a few years ago. Is this quite a useful sort of foresight to be based in Berlin, which is now becoming, I would say, one of the epicenters of global geopolitics once again?
Well, I do have to correct in that sense, since we are not per se Berlin-based, but let's say rather internet-based. The youth can do best, and this is by producing stuff online and connecting on the internet. Most of our fellows are from all sorts of countries from around Europe. So obviously, the most people come from Germany since it started in Germany, but we have a huge influx of people coming from the Netherlands, Dutch students or international students in the Netherlands. In fact, Leiden University is shout out to them, is a second foothold we have. But we are also in this very year experience a lot of people coming to us, or let's say onboarded from Paris, Sciences Po, and from the London School of Economics, from the Bocconi in Milano. We are from all sorts of countries and in around Europe, and especially in the last month, we've also seen increased interest coming from the US and Canada. And South Korea, which I think is tremendous that we across the globe, across the across the timelines have people joining our mission.
That is tremendous. And of course, it also outlines those that are perhaps have been most active in helping to support Ukraine and seeing some of the threat coming from not just sort of Russia directly on the European continent, but this so-called axis of authoritarian states.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because we can see that these that the debates and the political discussions happening in Europe or concerning Europe are not only concerning Europe, but if we are speaking from a NATO perspective or from a Western European defense perspective, this is also a matter for Canada. This is also a security matter for Japan. This is also a security matter for South Korea, because we are aligned in alliances, because we depend on each other due to trade, due to cultural alignments, and therefore we can see that for example, Ukraine being invaded by or attacked by Russia is also concerning students in Canada.
Let's turn to the mechanics then of the think tank. What is the pipeline's the wrong word, but what's your vision here of, getting people to be engaged, participating in the think tank, and then what's the follow through? What do you hope they will do, let's say, in their professional lives or their ongoing studies as a result of having had engagement with the think tank?
Well, what we do hope and what our mission is to help people in their careers, and that EPIS is not the only part, but builds some part in building up this later career. And this career could follow some many paths. When you think of policy students, you directly think of the European Union as one part of a career, European Commission, working for the European offices. But this is only one path. Besides, there are also some other paths going into political consulting, going into political lobbying, going to work for policy. In policy offices, not only run by the European Union or member states, but also, for example, NATO, going into military consulting, We've got alumni who ended up in some NGOs consulting them. So when thinking about let's say as a political students, political science students in its early bachelor days, in its early bachelor years, don't think of just I have this one path. There are lots of other paths around in this sector, and we hope that at EPIS we can broaden the horizon and show some paths and give you the opportunity to experience some of them.
And would you say that you come from a, let's say, almost a politically agnostic point of view? So there isn't a particularly left-leaning or ultra-conservative kind of perspective. What's the overall sort of philosophy, as it were, of you and your colleagues?
We have kind of three standards we follow through, which is collegiality, so that people should work together and should yeah, reach out to each other, because I want to build a network. EPIS wants to be a network. The second one is freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of doing what you want. At EPIS, there are some possibilities which are already like well established, as to publish briefs, as to do a talk, as to invite people for guest contributions. But there are also some many other options you can follow through, and there are some many other topics you can write about. And at EPIS, there will never be, let's say, there will never be a limitation on what topic you choose or what topic you need to limit yourself to. This is, of course, in the limits of, let's say, reason, and in the limits of manners, that yeah, you can choose whatever you want to write about. And the third one is that well, I'm thinking about the third one is oh yeah. Well, and the third one is professionalism. As we want to enhance, we want to foster, we want to help our fellows' careers and want to get them into careers. We follow a very professional pursuit, which comes down to the profile picture we have on our pages, the set of standards we have regarding our content. Or, for example, the set of standards we have when it comes to contact with experts, we always try to be reliable, on time, stuff like that.
And you have various publications, various outlets and formats to try and make these materials available, not just to a student audience, but to a professional audience as well. Could you run us through some of the sort of publications and formats that you are using to try and build your presence and, help connect these younger people with what future, potentially they could be, writing for established geopolitical publications,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Thank you very much for that question, because that allows me to demonstrate that the as the think tank grew, this is alongside the growth of the various formats. So we started off with some weird PDF documents nobody wanted to see on a website nobody visited, and so that's where my dear colleague Johannes and I came up with the idea. Hey, let's hire some layouter on over Fiverr. It was actually living in the Ukraine, and during the height of the first year of the war. So we were happy to pay him, to give him some money, and he made some wonderful layouts. And then people started recognizing these layouts, and we was like, what is going on? Somebody really actually reads that. Somebody's really interested. And then people started coming up, and that was the first edition of the magazine. And then right now we've recently published the eighth issue. And from six very good articles, we've now grown into like a regularly published issue magazine, with its own DOI links, with its own ISBN number, with all sorts of professional stuff. So this is, for example, the magazine, which is kind of our, let's say, flagship, our academic approach. But then we also have opinionated articles where people have the possibility to write what they think and what their personal beliefs are, besides the academic stuff, which is more neutral, which is more yeah, which is more neutral. And so in the blog, for example, which is published 2 times a week, we have short-term articles which only focus on an opinion. And this also started out. I was like, I still remember I was in Vienna in visiting a museum. I had this idea, we need some more content. So besides the academic articles, I called Johannes, was like, yeah, let's do a blog. And then we were hoping to find like 3 people who can write the first blog, and then we were covered for a month. And then it turned out to be like now we are publishing it not only once a month, but twice a week, and we are fully outbooked till the end of the year. This is kind of the excess. Yeah, summarizing it, we have a huge range of formats coming from big time articles to small blog entries all over again now.
And do you have a flavor? Because, from my immersion into some of the theory of geopolitics over the last couple of years, from really knowing relatively little about it, it's clear there are some who are relatively agnostic. There are some who align themselves with a particular school. Now we have the kind of Mearsheimer, Kissinger kind of so-called sort of realists. And what do people think of those, and how much realism is in realism there? It's a certain methodology and a way of interpreting the world. I tend to feel it breaks down when you look at specific cases like Russia, Ukraine, and you start looking at the minutiae of detail, trying to build up, a theory of geopolitics that involves morality and not the kind of nihilism or realpolitik. Do you align with any particular school, or again, are you trying to be more objective and not come at things with, let's say, an ideological framework?
EPIS doesn't have an ideological framework. We are neither left nor right. We are neither, well, how do you say that, progressive or nor conservative. This is only up to the authors. The authors are responsible for their content, and the authors have their personal opinion, and they can express it freely. But EPIS doesn't have a certain opinion for itself, and also doesn't want to align to something. The idea basically behind this strict rule of neutrality is that as we want to form a platform, we want to form a network. For political science students, we want to cover the whole range of what there is. I only remember 2 times where we filtered out and rejected the topic, which was basically it was just an article of hate speech someone tried to submit, and this is where we cross the line. Hate speech is an opinion. You can articulate yourself with using some sources and be more professional about that.
I mean, it's an interesting area. I wasn't going to touch on this, but I think it is an interesting one, isn't it? Because one could say, covering, for example, the nuclear threat from Russia and Russia's sort of nuclear brinksmanship or saber rattling. On the one hand, you could say that's an entirely valid topic to cover. On the other hand, there's a risk of amplifying what Russia would call its cognitive warfare, which is using threat, which is using, let's say, mainstream geopolitical coverage of certain issues to actually coercively deter Western allies from, say, helping Ukraine or even defending themselves. So there are certain risks, aren't there, of falling into the trap of the so-called cognitive warfare, which is more deployed by the Axis authoritarians than it is by the allies opposing it. Is that something you're sort of mindful there, that there may be either unconsciously or even consciously a slipping in of certain narratives like this?
Oh yes, indeed. We came across this this topic of cognitive warfare, and also thought about, hey, how can we secure ourselves from not being a platform for propaganda? And you mention it as a risk, but I would rather see it as an opportunity because when an opportunity for better to better our reasoning, an opportunity to strengthen our arguments. We had this a couple times when there were articles which were highly debated among our fellows in the WhatsApp chats on the phone or at some gatherings, and I always enjoy that when certain topics or certain opinions hit. Or created certain controversy because this allows the members and the EPIS fellows to argument and counter argument. We and then in this battle of arguments, the better argument wins. But this is only the case if this discussion is on a certain level. It's on a professional level. It's on an objective level, and this is what we secure. We never had this that there were personal insultations or hate speech, as I mentioned, which we tolerated or stuff like that. This doesn't happen, and because you need to moderate this, but a well-moderated discussion can face this threat of cognitive warfare and therefore be an opportunity to make the better argument win.
Now, another great way to engage people in this topic and indeed to create a richer understanding of it and producing better quality analysis is, of course, attending events. Now, I know that attending, some of the big defense and security events, as well as those focusing on geopolitics, is a prime focus of what you do. And of course, trying to get students into those places where, let's face it, the average age is a lot higher.
And this is something we recognized throughout our organization at some point because we initiated with the think tank being the source of publication where we write and publish. But besides that, we noticed, okay, people not only want to write, but they also want to, yeah, personally meet each other. We come in a round of time, or we were kind of set up. The think tank, EPIS think tank, was kind of set up in a range like the end of COVID, where this huge urge was to finally meet each other again and personally encounter. And so we figured, okay, hey, let's go to some conferences and do what political science students love: attend conferences, dress up nicely, and go for a coffee with some experts. So we called. I remember I had this one colleague who was working. At the Berlin or for the Berlin Security Conference, and I rang up this colleague. I called her. It's like, hey, could you get us some tickets? Because we didn't have any budget for anything. And she was like, yeah, let me, how much do you need? It was like, okay, at that time, we were like 10 students. Yeah, maybe 10 tickets. And she was like, yeah, let's do three. And then at the beginning, and then you can jump on. And then we met people at the conference and was like, hey, we never had students attending that or this is a new thing. And then we thought like, okay, maybe there's another conference and another conference and another conference. And now we have this whole team who's just concerning with reaching out to conferences and asking whether it's a possibility for students to engage there. It also doesn't always have to be like that they you say that give out free tickets, but the idea is that basically we as students are recognized as possible partners for the conferences. So to everybody running a conference and listening to it, just reach out to us. We are happy to send some students and get them into the discussion.
That's fantastic. Of course, this is one of the big events as well, and it's a great experience for them to do that. I mean, based on the conversations you're having, the events you're running, the topics that you and colleagues are writing about, What do you think are going to be the big stories that will engage people, the big topic areas or even geographic areas over the next 12 months? Because, of course, I mean, the last couple of years has been an absolute sort of storm of geopolitical stories and events. It's like the old Lenin phrase, sometimes a decade will go past with relatively little in it, and sometimes a year will contain a decade's worth of stories. We seem to be living in such a time.
That's quite a good question because it requires some foresight. Okay, what will be relevant? And I would love to have that magic ball visualizing me. Okay, this topic, this you should really write about that. You should really publish about that. Well, hitting on now trending topics is I think not a way to answer this, but I think rather in broader trends, what we see, what people are engaged in, is obviously Europe. We are a European student think tank, so Europe is the concern for most of our fellows. And then defense, we can fit it, we can shrink it down to defense, since we are also a European defense. And by the way, let me answer this again.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is quite a tough topic because we as a student think tank not only focus on one specific topic or specific region, but rather have like a global and interdisciplinary approach. So we cover both topics from the economics in South America to the defense or in policies in Indo-Pacific and some I don't know, some cybersecurity in Europe. So this is where we have tried to approach a very broad perspective to have to also provide a platform for many students who don't really fit into, for example, the other student think tanks who are only concerned with Europe. Um, and so when you ask me now to pinpoint challenges, let's say it like that, will be an overarching topic for the next time. And we've seen climate change being a topic which has less attention than we were used to. And yeah, so I think it's about defense and economy, and leveling it down. It will be the defense challenges of Europe regarding some new threats coming from Russia, and it will be economic challenges of North America and Europe, which they face when we look at the global trade.
And the last question here is looking at your work and looking at it going forward, what do you consider to be success? What are the measures of success for the work of your colleagues and yourself?
Well, I would assess that question in three areas. Short-term success is we are right now working on an app, an EPIS app, and it would be a success if we by February next year will have a downloadable app in the App Store. Midterm success would be that we have established a recognition that we are asked to send fellows on stage, and that our fellows have reached a level of professionality and a level of network where they can have their own studies brought into the professional and expert field, which is, by the way, starting already, but we're still at the beginning phase. So my midterm goal is that which have reached some positions, some employments, at some paths, at some career paths we previously touched upon, and can start enforcing or act on these policies and act on these topics they have previously studied, written, published upon. So yeah, and my goal is that finally we reach that and have a live. How do you say that? A lively network across Europe.
Well, fantastic. I very much look forward to seeing the progress and the success of the organization, and of course, to greater engagement with you and the important work that you're doing. But for today, though, Theodore, thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for having me. That was a pleasure.